we'll just admit people as they come in. It's wonderful to see everyone coming on this morning though. So welcome everyone to our second event in the SDG series that we have. Today we're focusing on climate and watersheds and water resources and all the amazing things that have to do with SDG 6. My name is Sarah Flynn. I'm the director of the Center for Global Education. And on this call today, we have our friends from ACGC, the Alberta Council for Global Cooperation, and some of their partners around the world. So we have Sabrina, who's joining us live from Kathmandu at like 10 p.m. at night. Amazing. And then we have Aditya, who's joining us a little bit closer to home here in Canada. But we're going to have this global idea of what is water, and we're going to have a local idea of what is water and what does it mean to us. How do we conserve it? How do we embrace it and recognize it and cherish it and all those wonderful things. I'm very excited to have this conversation. Before we really get started, I wanted to say that I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you on Treaty 6 territory, which is the traditional meeting grounds, gathering place and traveling route of the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, and Dakota Sioux. But I want to say that we are joining from lands all across the world. Virtually, this platform allows us to bring us together from coast to coast to coast in Canada, and then from all the coasts around the world, really, because it's one ocean. We're joining on this virtual platform, and I want to acknowledge all the Indigenous peoples on the lands that we are all joining from today. And we do this to reaffirm our commitment to the responsibility in improving relations between Indigenous peoples and understanding of local cultures and Indigenous peoples' knowledge and wealth of information that they have to share with us about the lands that we call home. Together, we have to do more than just talking about reconciliation, especially here in Canada. We must learn how to practice it in our everyday lives. And talking about water and connecting with people who are living in areas that are impacted is a part of that. And so let's have our listening ears on today and be asking really thoughtful and meaningful questions. And I'm so excited to share our speakers with you. So just as like an administrative sort of thing, if you have questions, we love questions. Last week we went over by like 10 minutes because we just had so many amazing, awesome questions. We love them. So you can either use the little reactions button down here. Boop. If you're joining from YouTube, sorry, you'll have to either type your questions because Rebecca is over on YouTube and bringing them in. Or if you're watching later on YouTube, then, well, you could email them to us. I'm sure our speakers would love to have your questions later. But if you're in the room right now on Zoom, so the reactions button, you can raise your hand or you can type it in the chat. We would love to bring your questions in. And I'm sure too, both the speakers are pretty great at seeing, hey, any questions, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, so we're ready to roll over to Thomas. I'd love to welcome you again this morning. Another amazing week in our 3 or 4 week series. So we're on number 2, focusing on water. Over to you, Thomas. Welcome.
Well, thanks. It's great to be here and welcome everyone. This is very, very exciting. My name is Thomas. I work with the Alberta Council for Global Education, or no, that's not where I work. I work for Global Cooperation, but Sarah works for the Center for Global Education. And I'm very excited to be here because we do a lot of work with youth around Alberta to help folks understand more of how we're connected globally. We are connected whether we realize it or not, and that connection is even better when we're intentional about it. And so we're really excited that you're interested in the Sustainable Development Goals and how we can move forward in a good way, how we can create a better world in our own context, in our own schools, in our own communities. So very, very excited that you're here, and thank you for taking the time to join us. And today I'm very excited as well to focus on water, to focus on climate, and to learn together, to learn from our presenters who are with us today, who are connected to ACGC, where I work, and who have a lot of really interesting experience and firsthand knowledge to share with us. And we're really interested as well to hear from you, because that's what this project is about, to inspire one another, to inspire you to take action and to do things that are going to make the world better, and things that you can do from where you are and where you're situated. So welcome, glad you're here. I live in Calgary on Treaty 7, and I want to acknowledge Treaty 7 territory as well, and very, very excited to be part of this with you this morning.
Amazing. So now before we go over to our speaker, and Thomas will introduce our speakers as well, I just wanted to quickly post. So in the chat, I've put a link to our live Google Doc. Now for ESME students, you've been involved, well, Madame Chevet has been involved in some of these events in the past. And what we're doing was we're sort of mixing together our town hall format with our live video conferences. So people who are in the class, maybe Madame Chevet can share this somehow. I should have sent it out on the calendar invite, but I just got it back. And so we are asking for you to think about what we're talking about, but also put in your own comments at the same time. So why is water important to you? And we would love to see every student who's involved. You don't have to do it live during the meeting, though that gives you something to do in the background while you're sitting. But if you'd like to do it afterwards, that's totally fine too. It shouldn't take more than a couple minutes. And it's like, who would you reach out to in terms of water? What sort of responsibility do we as Canadians have in protecting our water? And by and large, protecting water for other people as well. Right? Remember, it's all actually big one water bottle. And then what are our thoughts on water and water conservation and water oceans and all that as we sort of think about local while we're learning about global. Does that make sense, everyone? And so this obviously is on my slide. You can't click this link by poking on the computer screen, but it's down in the chat. We would love to see you over there sometime today. That would be amazing. It will be open for at least 24 hours. And now I want to acknowledge all the schools who are joining us later. So we have our friends at Austin O'Brien who usually join just a bit past the hour. But, and then West Island College, SME, of course. We have our friends from Livingston Range, I think, have logged on with Mr. Taylor. We have Westwood Community, Lacombe Composite, Father Lacombe representing in Calgary. We have Camrose, I see they're on. Queen Elizabeth, of course, is on. St. Andrew's School, Harry Ainley. And then a bunch of schools from outside of Alberta who are just like so keen on this experience. Now, I know our friends from Trinidad and Tobago usually log on a little bit later, so we'll see them before the end of the meeting. And then everyone who's going to be watching this later online, because I know some classes are at 10 a.m., so they have to stream it a little bit later in the day. But we're so looking forward to recording this chat and then sharing it with you later. All right, Thomas, that's my little bit done. How about over to you to introduce our wonderful speakers? I don't want to take any more time.
That's great. That's great. Folks, I'm excited to introduce Sabrina to you. And Sabrina comes to us from Nepal. She lives and works in Kathmandu. And so there right now, it's about 10 p.m. So very, very happy to have Sabrina on the call. And Sabrina works for an organization called Environment and Public Health Organization, or ENFO. And I had the chance to connect and work with Sabrina when I worked with a different organization in Alberta. And she was also last year a top 30 under 30, is very, very passionate about clean water and sanitation, and has a lot of really interesting things to share with us about her context in Nepal. So Sabrina, welcome. And I'm just going to pass it over to you to share with us what you'd like to share this morning.
Sir, thank you so much, Thomas and team. I'm really glad to be part of this SDG series. I'm really excited to see all of the energetic people. Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity. Now I'm going to, I would like to go through the slides, Sarah. Yeah. Okay, would you please help to present? Sure. Namaste and warm greetings to all. Sme Sabuna Gamal from Nepal. As Thomas already has mentioned, I'm working at the Environment and Public Health Organization here in Nepal as a trainer. And I'm really glad to be the part of top 30 under 30. I'm really thankful to SDG. Now I'm going to present about the SDG goal. I'm going to present particularly focusing on the clean water. It's my pleasure to share my experience and the context of Nepal regarding the water and its conservation. First of all, I would like to introduce the Nepal. I think most of you have visited virtually or maybe in presence. Um, uh, but I'm really grateful to. I'm really want to welcome you all at Nepal. I'd like to go through the another slide. Okay. Nepal is the mountainous country, and there is a many number of mountains above the 5,000 kilometers meters, and sorry, and mostly the Nepalese people are based on the agriculture, and there is a very diversity in terms of the environmental diversity, in terms of the cultural diversity, and Nepal is the small and beautiful country. However, there is lots of water resources and is rich in the water resources. However, there is water scarcity in terms of the drinking water, and it has been a serious concern in some part of the Nepal. In the rural parts of Nepal, people have to go for long duration to take the water, to bring the water in their home. And in urban context, the people is suffering from the water scarcity, that they have to wait for a long time to get a bucket of the water. And such scenario we can found in some of the part of the Nepal. It's not about the water scarcity, but it's also another serious concern is the quality, water quality. And as per the survey, sorry, I'm not being able to, okay. Another serious concern is the water quality, and the different studies have shown that the studies that we Info has conducted or other studies shows there is a fecal contamination at the water at the source. More than 75% percentage of source water has been contaminated with the feces, and not only that, more than 85% drinking water has been contaminated at household level, and this is really serious concern. And considering the fact that there is the both issues on the water scarcity and water quality. So to meet the SDG goal and indicators, there was a steps that we should implement. So we conducted different activities to address these issues. And as per the Sustainable Development Goal Indicator 6.1.1, it has mentioned that safely managed drinking water services is must common for all us, and it should be achieve, or it should be universal or equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. But in terms of indicator regarding like the water resources should be located at the premises, and it should be free from contamination, but there was a gap between the indicators and the real scenario. So we Info, with the support from the Canadian organization, it's called CAS, Center for Affordable Water and Sanitation Technology, we implemented the model healthy community concept at the earthquake affected communities of Nepal as a pilot implementation, focusing on the water quality testing and sensitization. Model healthy community, one of the major indicator of the model healthy community was the safe water, ensuring the safe water. But in Nepal, people just feel that our water is clean and it is safe, because there is nothing. The perception was, it was difficult to change the perspective of the people. So water quality testing, along with the sensitizing to the real field-based experience, was important part of this approach. And as a part of the model healthy community, we just promoted safe water at the household level, and we promoted the household water treatment option, and ensuring the safe water at each household. So use of filter, use of solar disinfection system, chlorination and boiling, we promoted all of the option at that community. And people just started to adopt that behavior in their daily life. And that was not only the concept, but we also implement the behavior change campaign regarding the safe water at the community, because it was really important step to sensitize people on safe water. So the training was provided to the volunteers, local volunteers, and local volunteers who work at the community for promoting the safe water, and also regarding the water conservation, because there was scarcity of water in many parts. So they also promoted the rainwater harvesting and water treatment options. And the communities were declared as a safe water community. Many communities were able to inspire as a safe water community. Considering the fact that the water scarcity and the related problem, we just promoted the climate resilience water safety plan to ensure the safety of water from the source to the household level. So these were some of the steps that we taken at the community level. And beside that, we are not just focusing on water, we are also focusing on other indicators of the sustainable development goal, like its climate action and sanitation, especially for also focusing on sanitation and hygiene. And nowadays we are also promoting for the COVID-19 prevention related activities, and these are some of the photos that I'm involved for promoting the SDG to achieve the SDG goal. Thank you so much for your kind attention. I think 10 minutes has been passed. So if any queries, please feel free to ask any question.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. So I see that we have a few different schools logged in, which is wonderful. We want to give everyone a chance if they have a question to do so. We might go down over to Madame Gervais' class with Esme. And when you have a question, maybe you can introduce yourselves first, because I know you usually have a like, hi, we're from Esme. That would be amazing and wonderful. So introduce yourself and then ask your question. Are you good to go, Esme?
You guys have one?
Yeah, so
we're
Esme and I'm Alexander. So I have something to add on with like water, like with clean water, because a lot of the reserves, like the indigenous reserves, don't have as much clean water as like average houses.
Oh, if you're still talking, you've muted yourself.
That was just my response to.
Oh, you just wanted to have a statement, sort of, and well, that's really interesting. So maybe we can turn it into a question for Sabrina and for maybe Thomas as well. You can help. Like in Canada, we do have a very large problem with having fresh, potable, so drinkable water available in remote communities. And most of our remote communities have a high Indigenous population. So this could be reserves, but it's also our northern communities as well, generally.
I think that's a really important comment. And I think what I'd say is Aditya will talk a bit about that, I think, in his presentation. So
Wonderful.
we can save it for now, but thank you for your statement. Yeah.
That's a great parallel and way to think about the global and then relating it to things that you've learned about locally. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
All right, now I see that we have CCHS and we have our friends joining us from Camrose. And
ask if anybody.
Is there any other questions? Or another one from Esme, if you'd like. All working in the background. Like,
Can I ask a question in the meantime?
Please do, Thomas. Yes.
Sabrina, I'm really curious to hear how you've seen climate change impacting the availability of water sources in your context.
Yeah, we have experienced the impact of climate change on water and other aspects also. And regarding the water, the water sources has been like there were many water sources in past years, but it has been less. It's because of the one of the impact of the climate change. So the alternative options has been promoted as a climate resilience water safety plan, like rainwater harvesting, or while constructing the water supply system, there should be the alternative plan of the for the water sources. Alternative water sources also should be should be allocated or in that way.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
We have one question that came in and it relates to gender and how it interplays with water in Nepal. So
yeah.
So do these issues, is it impact in particular women? And yeah, I would love to hear.
Of course, I really agree. Actually, in Nepal, water is really associated with the gender issue. In Nepal, most of the women are involved in collecting water, and in overall water sanitation related activities are performed by women. And because of the impact of the climate change and the burden of collecting water has been shifted to women, so it has been the really serious concern here in Nepal.
Wonderful. I think that's such an important concept, because even when we're talking about whether we're talking about communities in need and equal access, or we're talking about gender and how it impacts it, it shows how the SDGs aren't siloed. That SDG 6, we don't just talk about water, that we're talking about all these other aspects in our society. And it's just such a great way, a great lens into many different SDGs and the importance of addressing them. All right, are there any last questions? I'm not sure. I mean, it's Sabrina is joining us. It's 11:30 now for her at night, and so 10:30, and so she might log off, but she may stay. Well, I don't want to pressure. So we can always save some questions to the end. But is there any of our other sites who would like to ask a question before we go? I'm looking for some hands waving. Or all right. Well, then if you come up with a question because you're listening to Aditya and it reminds you of something you heard about Nepal and you're trying to put them together, remember, you can always put something in the chat or raise your hand and we'll get to you.
I'll ask one more, just because I think it might be of interest.
Ahead, Thomas.
But so Sabrina, can you say a little bit about the impact of COVID on your work and what's happening in your context?
Actually, normal project activities were shifted to the COVID response because we were just focusing and working on the different aspect of the water sanitation and hygiene. But after the COVID, we just focus on hand hygiene, water purification method, and use of masks, and this behavioral aspect were mostly promoted because of the COVID-19 situation, and we were the field level activities were also hampered because of the restriction on movement. So we were working remotely from home. So field level activities have been impacted, but nowadays the COVID-19 cases has been declined. So the normal project activities for SDG has been continued.
Yeah, that's great. And I've seen some of your work in promoting COVID response and helping with public education around that. It's been really important. I think ENFO is really well positioned to respond and to help in Kathmandu and the surrounding area too. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all. I'm really thankful to all, and I'm happy to part of the event series. I'll join, no problem.
Thank you so much, Sabrina.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you, Sabrina. Yeah, okay. We'd like to shift gears here a little bit and invite Aditya to talk with us. Aditya works with water movement and is very passionate about the sustainable development goals and also helping young people like yourself understand what they can do to be part of working toward these goals, whether it's in your own backyard or globally. And Aditya was also top 30 under 30 in 2019 and based here in Alberta. So Aditya, I'd like to welcome you and thank you so much for being here, for bringing a different perspective to the conversation as we focus on sustainable development and taking action in any way that we can. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Sarah, thank you, Sabrina, for that perspective from all the way on the other side of the world and really helping us remember that water is everywhere, and we gotta focus on water issues not just at home but around the world. I'm so excited to be here today. Very good morning to all the students, teachers, and my fellow colleagues on the call. My name is Aditya, or Adi, and I am an ambassador with Water Movement. We are a nonprofit organization and we support Indigenous communities in Canada access clean water. And I know some of you already touched on this, so I got very excited to talk to you about this morning. And I also know that we're with a lot of really smart young people, which makes me even more excited to have this conversation with you. Now, before we move on, I want to know, we touched on this already, but I do want to quiz you a little bit. Can anyone tell me which SDG is most really closely related to accessing clean water? Now, this might be a really easy answer because we already talked about it, but feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. But I want to know if you know which SDG is most closely related to accessing clean water.
Put them on calories view so I can see them all. All right.
Anybody? You can type your answer in the chat. Make sure it's everyone so we can all see. You can even put your hand up to show me what the number is. Maybe. Oh, we've got someone saying 6. Any other numbers? Or do we all think it's 6? Well, I'm happy to tell you, and I know we already knew this, it is SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. And we also talked about how the SDGs are so interconnected, right? When you're advancing one SDG, you're really advancing more other SDG, if not all of the other ones. So we talked about water around the world. Now let's talk about water in Canada. Sarah, if we could have you share the slides one more time.
You bet. Here we go.
I want you to think about the map of Canada, our beautiful big nation, all the Great Lakes, so much water. We're a vast land just full of water. And I'm probably sure that you already know that, in fact, we are a nation with one of the largest freshwater reserves in the world. Just one more slide over, Sarah. Thank you. Yes. And it's probably why you and I don't have to give a second thought when we turn on our taps. We just go to the washroom, go to our kitchen, and we turn on the tap, and crystal clear water just comes rushing out, and we can use it right away to drink or wash. Now let's go to the next slide. In this very same country, there are over 43 communities, of which 31 are First Nations, who can't say the same. They can't just go to their faucets and turn it on and have the same clean drinking water that you and I have. These communities don't have access to clean drinking water, and they typically have to boil the water for at least 1 minute before it can be used or consumed. And you can see on the map that there are 43 communities under long-term advisories. Do you know what that means? As the name suggests, it means that these communities have had to live under these conditions for more than 1 year. Now, there are actually 3 types of water advisories, and the most common one is what we talk about, boil water advisories. And that's what I was just saying, that this is when the water needs to be boiled for at least a minute before it's safe to drink or use. Next slide, please. Now, can you imagine life under a boil water advisory? I just want you to imagine. It's very difficult, and it affects your everyday life, because from the moment you get out of your bed to brushing your teeth, to washing a fruit, to the most important use, drinking water, hello, we have to boil it for at least 1 minute before we can use it, so all the contaminants are removed. Now, we've talked about Canada's water situation, and I know you guys are aware because you're all smarty pants and you're learning about this in your schools. I want to ask you, what do you think is the cause of a drinking water advisory? Why are these communities not having access to clean drinking water? And I see there's a comment, we had a boil water advisories for a few days in Canmore, and it was so hard, right? Just a few days and it was so difficult. So now imagine a long-term drinking water advisories when you have to do this for a whole year or more. So think back to this, you know, why do drinking water advisories get issued? You know, why especially Indigenous communities face these drinking water advisories? You know, what causes these communities to go under advisories? Take a moment and think about it. Put your answers in the chat or feel free to unmute again. I want to pick your brain and I want to know, why do you think drinking water advisories are issued?
Looks like Madame Gervais' class, or yes, Madame Gervais' class has raised their hand and they're ready.
Yes, please.
I think it's because of uncleaned pipelines that have water, because when you, even just with normal tap water, just yesterday, my mom had to get a plumber to fix our pipe because of a calcium, like there's a calcium buildup inside of our tap, and we had to change it. So it could be caused by calcium, it could be caused by any other type of natural things that comes in water that is uncleaned.
Okay, Dee Dee, do you want to add?
Yeah, I also have something to add to that.
Please.
I was thinking that maybe it could be because they don't
you'll have your
live,
break
like
after.
Indigenous reserves are outside of the city, and that's kind of where main pipe streams are, and they're kind of like outside, so it could get.
You don't have to-
Excellent insight. Those are excellent insights.
I also have,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I also have something to add. I feel that it could be part of the pipelines. The pipelines could be contributing to why the clean water isn't being supplied, but it could also be from the water sources. The water sources could be overloaded with different types of plants or even fish, and maybe it's not being properly like cleaned as it's coming into those resorts.
Wow. You guys have such fantastic insight. And I also saw one in the comments section about old treatment facilities, no funding to fix, lack of funding for proper infrastructure. Wow, you guys know so much. And I love that, because let's go over to what the answer is, because the answer actually is exactly what you talked about, right? It really comes down to these issues. So you see across Indigenous communities, there's a lack of funding for their water plans and operations, right? The very facilities that treat the water and bring it to their homes, there is a lack of funding to maintain that infrastructure. Someone also said that they were far outside of cities and far away, right? They're often remote. So it's very hard to get parts and equipments to the facility, from the facility, for experts to come visit the facility. You can just imagine anything you put in a very remote place, you're adding a lot of time to get to and from. And finally, I want to talk about the water operators. Who do we think these folks are? These are the very, very people who operate these water plants. They're the people because of whom the water gets treated and the water flows to the pipes in our homes. And guess what happens when you're not supporting this infrastructure and you're not paying them enough? They don't want to do their job. They don't want to come to work because they're not getting paid enough. And there aren't enough young people coming into the professions to take over. So you've got some people who are unable to retire and go on because newer water operators aren't coming in to take the job. So what can we do to help these communities? We know about the problem. It's very important to learn about the issue. And I'm so delighted that we started this morning with such insightful young minds, because it seems like you guys are already aware and you're learning more. You must become informed. And before we can tackle SDG 6 globally, we have to champion it nationally, right here at home. We have to connect with the water treatment operators who are actually doing the work of bringing clean water to you. We have to listen to them, and we have to learn about their work and their challenges, so we have a good idea about what the issues are and where we can help. So Water Movement, the organization that's here today, we actually did exactly that. We spent 3 whole years connecting with Indigenous communities across the country to just listen and learn. Water is especially sacred for Indigenous people. And our team was very fortunate to hear some of these traditional water stories right from the operators, from elders, and other leaders of the community. And we learned more about the meaning behind water, its life. I want to quickly tell you a story about someone very special in Water Movement. His name is Warren Brown. Next slide, please, Sarah. Warren is a water treatment operator, and he's someone who's an expert, and he's helped lift water advisories from his community. And you know, he's underpaid, like I said. He's doing such a good job, but he's not getting paid enough. So in an interview with CBC, they asked him, well, Warren, why don't you go over to, he's from Lytton First Nation, which is near Vancouver. So they said, well, Warren, why don't you go to Vancouver and get a job? You'll get paid more, there'll be better infrastructure, it's not remote. And do you know what he said? He said, I keep doing this so that my friends and my family can keep getting water. That's something, eh? So Warren is a hero, and so are all these other water treatment operators who continue to work every day to make sure not just you and I have water, but everyone in the community continues to have water. So students, you are the future, are leaders of tomorrow, and you must take an effort to learn more about Canada's water crisis and how our Indigenous communities continue to lack access to such a precious commodity. You should know how the water you rely on is treated, who treats it, and how easily it comes out of your taps every day. And once you do that, and you're even more excited about it, consider a career in the water industry. And who knows, maybe one day, you will be the reason others are getting their clean water every day. And for all the wonderful teachers on the call today, encourage your students to learn more about water. Water Movement offers a Youth Water Leaders program, which includes free workshops, science day events, and lunch and learns that can help facilitate some of these conversations through hands-on experiences. And these programs are fantastic in helping bridge the connection between students and our water sectors. We are cultivating the next generation of water leaders, and we cannot do it without your support. In the photos you see right here on the top left one especially, you can see some of the in-person and virtual events we've done. And one of the coolest events we've done is when we got together virtually, because this was still in COVID, and we created little edible water pods, as you can see in the top left, and we sent kits all over to the doorsteps, and we made them together, and it was science, and it was delicious. So before we conclude and move on from this conversation today, I want to remind you how interconnected the water issue is and how we need everyone to solve it. To tackle an SDG as important as this one, number 6, we really need all hands on deck. Just like the ocean, small ripples can lead to huge waves. So as we come together and work to advance SDG 6, we're also advancing other SDGs on our path to 2030. So thank you very much for listening to me. I know you're all champions and you'll be helping Canada and the world advance, and not just SDG 6, but all of the SDGs. I invite you to check out Water Movement online. Yes, we're even on TikTok. You can visit our website at www.watermovement.ca. Go follow us, like us, let us know how you enjoyed today's conversation. And teachers would love to have come into your classrooms and have fun while learning and more about water with your students. And thank you once again. Let's see what else we have for you this morning.
I'm muted. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Local Canadian is so great to have this global idea. And then how does that relate here to Canada? And as we sort of interrelate them, because yeah, like you said, it's reducing inequalities and it's gender and it's all these that are, like it's similar. They hearken to similar needs, but just different needs, right? And so it's such wonderful to see that. Now I see that Aisha has already raised her hand, so I'm going to go right over to her. But then if Madame Charvet's class would like to work on a question in the background, and we'll go over to them later. And then I see Miss Walter's class at CCHS might have a question, and anyone else who is here who's I don't want to put people on the spot who don't want to be on camera, but maybe in the chat. Oh, there's even one in the chat waiting to go to. So we'll go Aisha and then Madame Charvet and then CCHS, because I think they have students in the background, and then our one in the chat. All right, Aisha, over to you.
Okay. I'm sorry if this comes off like awkwardly, but I'm like trying to find a way to phrase it. So the perspective regarding like water advocacy that you just used is very like community based, and I guess my question revolves around a more of like a policy lens. So there's a lot of barriers like legislative wise as well, like just using Alberta as a like contextualizing with Alberta, we have the Water Act. So as youth, how do we go about not only just making change like through the community within resources, but also looking at that piece of policy and finding ways to kind of make more concrete and systemic change regarding these pressing issues?
May I? Okay, I love that, Aisha. Your question has me so excited already. I think you answered a bit of that in your question. It's doing that research. First of all, understanding how much policy really revolves around our lives, right? I grew up as someone, I hated politics, right? I think I still don't like it as much, but I realized that no matter how much I hate or love it, it involves me, because everything we do involves the law, right? How far I can park my car from something is a piece of legislation. How much water comes flowing out of my tap, how much fluoride's in there, everything is a piece of legislation. So the first thing that you said was, understanding that there is legislation that's behind everything that we're trying to advocate for is the first step. Number two is, you're all brilliant, right? You're already talking about some of the specific pieces of legislation. So do some of that research to find out what governs this, right? Like what bills led to, me having this kind of water at home or not this water at home, right? So start kind of tracing that way back and try to find those leverage points where you can really, really have impact. So that could be like, hey, you need to write to a minister. It could be gathering support for a town hall, but it's really finding those leverage points to get involved in the political process. And I know for a lot of you who are not 18, it's hard to say that, okay, well, you know what, I can't vote, what can I do? Well, listen, voting is actually the easiest part of the whole thing, because you just got to show up, be informed, and make your choice. But it's that research, it's that showing up to the processes, right? Being there for when decisions are being made, writing to ministers, gathering support, educating one another, right? We talk about trends like, okay, well, let's do the latest TikTok trend today, right? Well, what about, let's talk about the latest piece of legislation that's passed, right? I know it can be sometimes boring, but these kinds of things are going to lead to actually big change. And I'll end with something where what really made me believe that is that I used to again think that, I'm just one person, one citizen, what's that going to do? And then on one trip to Parliament Hill with a group of students, we actually went and lobbied for a better international Canada's foreign policy to have a more feminist agenda. So we said, you know what, you need to support more women-owned businesses, you need to lift up these types of businesses and things like that across the world. And just me by advocating and doing it in a group of people, a year later, I saw that Canada's federal budget actually reflected to have those things. So all of a sudden I went from, okay, well, what do I do? You know, I'm just one person, I'm reviewing legislation, what can I do? This little act that I did with a bunch of, you know, friends and colleagues suddenly reflected and ended up affecting the federal budget of Canada. So that's just my little explanation of why I think that really, really matters and proof of it. But my answer to you is just that do your research, find out how you can get involved, and really, really voice your opinion, because you are way more powerful than you think.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Now I'd love to go over to Madame Gervais' class if they have a question. Over. Yes, no.
So
Okay.
when I used to live in Ontario, I was a little younger than this, but there was a lead problem in the water. So you couldn't really drink tap water because of the lead problem inside the waters, because for some reason there was like lead inside the water treatment facilities and it messed up the water.
So that was just a statement or a question?
This is a question. So why was there lead in water? So how does it like get from lead into lead water? It was a little weird, but like how did the lead get inside the water?
Sorry, can you hear me? Okay, there we go. So there's the main straight answer to you is a lack of treatment, right? When we have water that's coming from, you know, a source like a lake, a river, whatever, that water directly, right, you can't just take that water and drink it. It needs to undergo treatment to make sure it's safe for us to drink. So wherever that water is coming from, there is some sort of a contamination. We've got lead. Now, there could be many reasons how that lead got in there. Maybe there was, you know, some sort of pollution that led to that. Maybe there was a nearby, you know, another facility that may have leaked it into it, whatever the reason is. But now that you have this water that's contaminated, it needs to go through a proper treatment process before it can be, you know, you can drink it or use it. So that process, treatment process has failed, and therefore the water is coming right from the source, which has lead, right to your pipes. Other things like corrosion. I mean, a lot of times pipes have, I'm sure you guys know what that is. Pipes have contaminants that can leak into the water over time. So you have to make sure maintenance is a really, really big process, right? As we're going through our treatment facilities, we're not just treating the water, but what about all the things that are actually involved in the treatment of the water? Those things need upkeep, right? It's just about when we talk about our dishwasher or washing machine, but what about cleaning actually the dishwasher and the washing machine that cleans the dishes and washes the clothes, right? It's kind of like that kind of an idea. So again, it stems from an idea of where did this water actually come from? Why is it contaminated? And now that you're putting it through a water treatment facility, why is it not clean yet, right? So there's two questions you need to ask and investigate from that. And again, coming back to that question, right? Research, ask the right questions, voice your opinions, right? Ask those tough questions because someone needs to answer to them. And it all comes back to what Aisha was talking about, you know, our elected officials. Let's keep them accountable.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Now I want to make sure that all of our friends here are able to ask questions. Our friend Casey in Crow's Nest Pass, did you have a question, or are you? I'm happy to let you unmute and ask yourself.
I don't exactly have a question. It's sort of more of a statement, I guess. It's not like I'm expecting an answer. I think where the main issue arises from with all of these things that we're talking about is actually us, like us as a human race, and not valuing each other as much as we should, like how all Canadians should value every Canadian, not one over the other, because I think the Indigenous water issue does, like, I know there's science behind it, but I think it comes from the fact that we we don't think of ourselves as a community as much as we should. And I think the question, I guess, that we should ask ourselves is like, are we valuing each other enough to go forward with these, I guess, intentions and solving this issue as a human race and not just as a group?
So wonderful. Thanks for this statement. It's yes, thank you so much, Casey, for sharing your thoughts with us. I see there's one question here from Cramrose, and it is it's how I love to end my video conferences. So I'm saving it till the end because I think it's just such a great way to inspire action. Because we learn about these issues, and oftentimes students, youth, don't feel that they have the power to make change. And so you were talking earlier about writing politicians, but the question out of Camrose is, what can youth do to help with water in Indigenous communities in Canada? Like, are there things they can be doing today that will make a difference? And I think this would work for Nepal as well, as how could Canadian youth help make space or make voice, or what could we do to, bring about some positive change in these issues in Canada and abroad?
Maybe I can chime in a little bit about what can youth do right now. I'm going to sound like such a broken record when I say that, keep learning, keep educating, because, even after all these years that water movement is spent, we're just at the surface, right? We're just learning about the issues, why it's so deeply rooted, right? So the more we open ourselves to learning and, not closing ourselves off to conclusions, we're able to really, really consider all the voices and all the players, right? We keep talking about how water is not just a 2-player game or a 3-player game, right? It's so interconnected. So we need to make sure we have a very open mind and we keep continuing to learn. And then especially in Canada, when we talk about an Indigenous perspective, we have such a deep history with our Indigenous brothers and sisters in this across Canada, Turtle Island, right? So we need to also learn about that, learn about those relationships, how we've come, and then work together towards a future, right? So yes, learn about the policies, learn about where you can voice your opinion, learn about where you can write to your elected officials, but also learn about the history of things, learn about how we've come to where we are today. And think about how what you're learning, what you're doing has an impact and is a key piece of the puzzle in the overall puzzle. Because sometimes we like to work in our silo or whatever we're learning, and we're like, well, how is this related to everything else? But really it is, right? So think about that and think about how your expertise or what you love to do or what you bring to the table, how can that be part of this solution? And I bet you, even if you think that what you're doing is not part of the solution, it's a huge part of the solution. You just haven't realized yet. So keep going, keep learning, keep being open, and think about how you can contribute to the overall solution. There are a lot of really great resources out there. I'm of course going to name Water Movement as being one of them that you can check out for lots of information. But your local public library, the government of Canada, check out Truth and Reconciliation resources. There's so much to read and so much great information that's going to not help you only become a great ally to our First Peoples, but also be a great asset to the problem as we try to solve Canada's water crisis.
Amazing. Thanks so much for that. And Sabrina, how do you feel that, is there any role for Canadian youth in helping raise the voice of Nepalese water issues? Is it about retweeting items, or is it social media? How can Canadian youth become more involved if they're inspired to do so?
It's very important concern that the raising the issues through the social media would be one of the effective way nowadays, most of the people use the social media and sharing, discussing, and still learning exchange through the social media would be better. I think so.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sabrina and Adi. Thomas, would you like to add any final closing questions? We're actually just only 4 minutes over today.
Yeah, one question for both of you. What keeps you motivated to do this work when it gets really tough? I know that sometimes these are big issues, and for not just me, but for youth, for students, these are big topics, big conversations. And what keeps you motivated and passionate, because I know you both are, to work toward access to clean water in your context?
Yeah, Thomas, the water is related to our life. Yeah, we can't just avoid the issue. Yeah, we have to. We are facing the different difficulties, and I just didn't focus focus about this, but water related disease and its impact is huge in Nepal, and different water related epidemics has been the common epidemics in Nepal, like the diarrhea, typhoid, cholera. It has been one of the serious concern for the death of children, especially under 5 children. So it's not only the water; it's about the life. So we can't avoid the issue. So I'm just working for the safe water, ensuring the safe water for all. It's about the life. That may be the real motivation.
That's a great motivation. Thanks so much, Sabrina, for sharing that, and for being with us today, for bringing a perspective from Nepal, and for helping us to understand all of the different connections between access to clean and safe water and health and climate and all of the ways that these things intersect. So really, really appreciate that. And Aditya, we'll give you the final response here.
Internet just dropped. He
okay.
Sent a little note, but he says hello and thank you, and it was wonderful speaking to everyone.
Oh,
and
that's very okay.
The timing of it was impeccable in terms of internet dropping. So
he shared a lot of his motivation already, so we're very excited that he could be here and do that with us.
Exactly. So next week we are talking about global health. And on December 1st is World AIDS Day. And so it was a happy coincidence that we wanted to talk about global health. And that was a day that we could really think about, what does it mean to have, what is COVID? What is HIV AIDS? How are communities so important as we fight disease? But just remember, next week we are 1 hour later. So we are meeting at 10 a.m. I'll send reminders to all the teachers. So we're starting at the time that we're finishing today. But we look forward to seeing you all next week. Please write your comments in the Google Doc. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Bita and Adi from the Water Movement. And thank you, Thomas, for hosting such an amazing event.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
So I can write I in the chat.
Yes. Nice.
What does it